morning to all. So in the last class we discussed about the Windows operating system as well as the Linux operating system. So in this class we have to focus on the topic the Linux distributions as well as some components of these Linux distributions and the different types of this Linux operating system, and we have a comparison between the Linux and Windows operating system. So firstly we have to focus on the topic the Linux distributions. So a Linux distribution is a member of the family of Unix-like software distributions built on top of this Linux kernel. Such distributions, often called as these distros for short, consist of a large collection of these software applications such as the word processors, spreadsheets, media players and database applications. So basically a Linux distribution is a member of the family of Unix-like software distributions built on top of the Linux kernel. So these kinds of distributions, which means the kind of packages which includes different types of the software, the utility software as well as these kinds of spreadsheets, word processing software, etc. So basically the collection of these all kinds of these packages are called together. We can call it as these Linux distributions, various types of these Linux distributions. So the definition of the Linux distribution is very important, in which it is a member of the family of Unix-like software distributions built on top of this Linux kernel. So the Linux kernel means it is the core part of this Linux operating system, in which we can add or we can develop all these kinds of Linux softwares based on these different types of this Linux distributions. So basically the Linux distributions consist of a large collection of these software applications such as these word processors, the spreadsheets, media players and also the database applications. And one important thing is that there are different types of these distributions are available. About 600 types of Linux distributions are available, and the Linux distributions are software development systems that are constantly revised and improved. So all these kinds of distributions, all these kinds of packages are updated in a regular interval, in which we get the latest kind of these features with the help of these updates. So these are the important factors regarding the various types of these Linux distributions. So one can distinguish between the commercially backed distributions such as this Fedora and the OpenSUSE, which means the novel, and also the Ubuntu. So the Fedora means the Red Hat Limited. So all these kinds of operating systems are different varieties of these Linux distributions. Basically the Ubuntu is one of the most popular forms of these Linux distributions, and we have the entirely community driven distribution, which includes the Debian and also the Gentoo. So the Gentoo and the Debian both are the free open source these kinds of operating system, which includes the Debian Linux, which is also a kind of operating system which is popular in the school level in order to study all these kinds of IT related informations. So basically it is now updated to the Ubuntu. So we have different varieties of these Linux softwares are available. So basically the commercially backed distribution and also entirely community driven distributions. So these are the two different types of these Linux distributions that are available today. Then we have the components of these Linux distributions. So a typical desktop Linux distributions comprise a Linux kernel, the GNU tools and libraries, additional software, documentation, a window system, window manager and a desktop environment. So basically the Linux distributions we can classify it into different forms, which includes a Linux kernel, which is very important regarding the operating system, then the GNU tools and the libraries, which means the basic kind of this utilities in this operating system, then the additional software in which we can install different kinds of the software according to our need. Basically we can install the VLC media player in order to open the video as well as this audio files in the Linux operating system. So it is an additional software. Then the documentation, a window system and also a window manager as well as a desktop environment. So all these kinds of important factors are very necessary for these Linux distributions. And most of this included software is free software or the open source software, which is distributed by its maintainers both as compiled binaries and in source code form, allowing the users to modify and compile the original source code if they wish. So this means that we can install any kind of this software from the store, the app store of this Linux or the Ubuntu, different types of these operating systems, and we can also modify it, we can redistribute it like that. So it is a kind of a free kind of this open source softwares which is included in the Linux distributions. Then mainly the distributions provide an installation system in order to provide different kinds of this modern operating system. So we can install all these kinds of packages with the help of this app store which is provided in the Linux operating system. So basically regarding the components of a Linux distribution, we have four major important aspects. The first one is the Linux kernel itself, second one is the GNU tools and the libraries, and third one is the additional software and also the documentation, and finally the Windows system, the window manager, and also the desktop environment. So these are the most important aspects or the components of the Linux distribution. So based on this, we have different types of this Linux operating systems are available, which includes the Ubuntu, then the Linux Mint, also the Debian Linux, and also the Red Hat, Fedora, and also the open source. Different types of these operating systems are available based on this Linux kernel. So we can develop different types of this operating system based on this Linux kernel, based on different types of these components like this operating system which is related to the Linux kernel. Then we have the distribution package, different types of these distribution packages. So the distributions are normally segmented into the packages. Each package contains a specific application or the service, and the examples for these packages are a library for handling the PNG, which means the portable network graphics image format, and also a collection of fonts or a web browser. So we have different types of distributions packages are available. So the distributions are normally segmented into packages, and also each package contains a specific application or the service. So that's regarding the distribution packages, in which it is all these kinds of distributions are segmented into a common form, which is the packages. So if we install a kind of package, for example, if we install this educational package, so we get the different types of the application which is related to the educational purpose. So in the Ubuntu, which is used in this school level kind of this ICT for that their practical side. So basically in that software in the Linux operating system, we have a kind of package which is the educational package, in which it includes all the basic kinds of these softwares which is related to the educational area. So it is also a kind of distribution packages, and the package is typically provided as a compiled code with installation and removal of packages included by a package management system, which is the PMS, rather than a simple file archiver. So regarding the distribution packages, different types of these distributions by the Linux operating system, the two important things is that the first one is the distributions are a collection of these packages, and the second one is that this packages is typically provided as a compiled code with installation and also the removal of packages handled by a package installation management system, which means the PMS system, rather than a simple file archiver. So with the help of this package management system, we can install different types of this distributions in the computer. So basically the example for the different types of this distribution packages is that the educational package for the educational purpose for the school level kind of this information and communication study. Then we have different types of this distribution levels, which means we can divide based on this different for the different use. Basically the first one is the commercial or the non-commercial use. Second one is regarding the design for the enterprise users, for the power users or for the home users. Third one is regarding supported on a multiple device, multiple types of this hardware based on the computers or the different types of this computing devices. Then the fourth one is regarding the design for the servers, then also for the desktops and for the embedded devices, So which means that all these kinds of Linux distributions are designed for different types of these computers as well as for the embedded devices. Then for the general purpose, which means for the highly specialized towards the specific machine these functionalities, examples for the network routers, for the computer clusters as well as for the firewalls. So for all these kinds of purpose we can use these different types of these Linux distributions. Then another important thing is that the targeted at a specific user group, which means that all these kinds of distribution types of these Linux operating systems are targeted to a specific group for the home users, for the office user, for the education purpose, etc. So it is also a kind of different types of this distribution. And lastly, it is built for the security, usability and also for the portability feature. So we have different types of these features are available for the different types of these distributions of these Linux operating systems. So these are the important aspects regarding the different types of this Linux operating system. So one thing that we should focus on is that all these kinds of Linux distributions are modeled or developed for the different purposes, basically for the home use, for the office use, or for any kind of this different types of use, which includes the security issues for the security purposes and also for the kind of this main servers, etc. Then the one of the important thing regarding the Linux distribution is that the diversity of these Linux distributions is due to the technical, organizational and philosophical variations among the vendors and also for the users. So based on this, we have different types of these Linux distributions are available. Then another important topic under this Linux distribution is that the installation. How to install these kinds of operating system with the help of these live CDs and as well as with the help of these pen drives. So which means that a live distro or the live CD is a Linux distribution that can be booted from a compact disk or rather other medium such as a DVD or the removable USB drive. So we can use these kinds of platform in order to install these kinds of operating system instead using this conventional hard drive. So we can use the compact disk, which means the CD or the DVD, as well as these pen drives in order to install this operating system, which includes these Linux, various types of these Linux distributions. So it is the first important aspect regarding the how to install the free distribution Linux. Second point is that the portability of installation free distributions make them advantages of these applications such as these demonstrations, borrowing the media for a standard distributions, and also many popular distributions come in both live and also for the conventional forms. This includes the Ubuntu, Linux Mint, then the Cidex, Fedora, etc. So all these kinds of different types of these Linux distributions comes with this installation live CD feature, in which we can test all these kinds of, we can demonstrate all these kinds of operating system with the help of a CD in order to boot the software, the operating system from that CD, and also we can boot these kinds of operating system from a pen drive also. So basically it is a kind of a cool feature of this operating system in which we can install, we can try all these kinds of operating system with the help of a CD or a pen drive. Then we have different types of distributions are available for the Linux, which includes the CentOS, which means a distribution derived on the same sources used by the Red Hat, and also it is maintained by the Red Hat communities. So the first one is the CentOS. Second one is the Debian. So the Debian means a non-commercial distribution maintained by a volunteer developer community with a strong commitment to the free software principle. So the best example for the Debian is the Debian Linux, the GNU Debian Linux. It is also a kind of distribution package from the Linux operating system based on this Linux kernel. Then the Fedora is the another kind of this popular distributions, which means it is the community distribution sponsored by the Red Hat itself. Then we have the Gentoo, which means a distribution targeted at the power users, known for its free BSD port like the automated system for compiling the application from the source code. So it is basically used for this developing all these kinds of operating systems, as well as based on this Linux kernel, and as well as the different types of these distribution packages. So that's regarding the Gen 2. Then the NOPITs. So the NOPITs means it is the first live CD distribution to run completely from the removable media without the installation to a hard disk. It is also derived from the Debian. So the NOPITs is the first live CD distribution package in which we can run this distribution without installing that operating system in the hard disk. We can run this operating system with the help of this live CD or these kinds of USB drives. So the another important distribution is the K Ubuntu, which means the based on the KDE, which means the K desktop environment. So it is the another type of this popular version of this Ubuntu. Then the Linux Mint, it is also a popular form from the Linux operating system, in which it is a distribution based on and also compatible with the Ubuntu itself. So it is also which is similar to the Ubuntu operating system. It is a kind of different types of this distributions of this Linux operating system. Then the another one is the Mandriva. So the Mandriva means it is a Red Hat derivative popular in France and Brazil. Today it is maintained by the French company of the same name. So it is regarding the Mandriva. Then we have the open source of a community distribution sponsored by the Novell. Also we have the Oracle Enterprise Linux. It is also a popular form of this Linux operating system, in which it is maintained by the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and also it is supported by the company which is the Oracle Softwares. Then another one is the PC Linux OS, which means it is a derivative of this Mandriva, a group of packages into a community spawned, which is like the desktop environment. And then the Red Hat Enterprise Linux, then also the Sabayon Linux, which is a Gen 2 based distribution. Then the Simply Mefits, which means the kind of Debian based distribution itself. Then the Slackware, and also the Ubuntu. It is a popular desktop distribution derived from the Debian itself, maintained by the Canonical. So based on these different types of these distributions, the Ubuntu is a popular form of this desktop distribution derived from the Debian, maintained by the Canonical. And also the last one is the X Ubuntu. It is also a kind of different types of this Ubuntu softwares. So basically we have about 17 different types of these Linux distributions are available, which includes the Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and also the Fedora, also the popular forms like the Debian Linux, etc. So these are the important different types of this Linux distributions that are available today. So basically we use this Ubuntu, which is a kind of popular form of this desktop environment, which is used in our day-to-day life. So that's regarding the different types of this popular distributions of this based on this Linux kernel. Then now we have the last topic of this Linux and Windows, which is the comparison between the Linux and the Windows. So we have different topics in which we have to focus on, which includes the price, then the use, also the reliability, the software cost, the hardware, security, open source, and as well as the support. So we have 9 different types of these topics that we should focus on while we comparing the Linux and the Windows. So based on this price, the first topic, the Linux is the majority of the variants of these Linux variants are available for the free of cost, and also it is available for the much lower price than the Microsoft Windows. So basically most of these Linux distributions are at the free of cost, and also while we comparing for the commercial use of this Linux software, it is very less than the Microsoft Windows operating system. So regarding the pricing of this Windows operating system, the Microsoft Windows can run between $50 to $150 per each license copy. So it is basically economically it is much higher than the Linux operating system. Then second one is the use, the ease of use, in which regarding the Linux operating system, Although the majority Linux variants have improved dramatically in ease of use, Windows is still much easier to use for the new computer users. So, regarding the use of this operating system, the Windows is one of the most popular form of this operating system, in which it is a kind of popular for various versions, including the Windows XP, then the Windows 7, as well as the Windows 10. So, all these different types of these variants of this Microsoft Windows are very popular for the users. So, regarding the use of this operating system, Windows have a clear edge over the Linux operating system. So, the Microsoft has made the several advancements and changes that have made it a much easier to use operating system, and although arguably it may not be the easiest operating system, it is still easier than the Linux operating system. So basically it is very easy to use, basically the Windows operating system, which means it is a popular kind of this operating system than the Linux operating system. So it is regarding the second topic of this while we comparing the Linux and the Windows. So the first one is regarding the pricing, second one is the ease of use, third one is regarding the reliability. So regarding the reliability of this Linux operating system, they can run often for several months and years without needing to be rebooted. So which means that the Linux operating system is reliable in its content. And also regarding the Windows, although the Microsoft Windows has made great improvements in reliability over the last few versions of the Windows, it still cannot match the reliability of the Linux. So regarding the reliability, the Linux has a kind of a clear edge over the Windows operating system. Then the fourth one is regarding the software. So the Linux has a large variety of the available software programs, utilities and also the games are available. However, the Windows has a much larger selection of this available software. So regarding the Windows, because of this large amount of this Microsoft Windows users, there is a much larger selection of this available software programs, utilities and also for the games for the Windows operating system. So regarding the software, both these operating systems have different types of softwares are available, but if we choose different types of these softwares, the Windows has a kind of clear edge over the Linux, in which it is most popular kind of this operating system. There are different types of the softwares are available for the Windows platform. So regarding this software, the Windows has a kind of clear edge over the Linux operating system. Then we have the fifth topic, which is the software cost. So regarding the software cost, the Linux operating system, many of these available software programs, utilities as well as the games available on Linux are freeware and or the kind of this open source software. And even such complex programs such as the GIMP, the OpenOffice, the StarOffice and also the Wine are the available for the free at a low cost. So regarding the software cost, most of these Linux distribution packages are at the free of cost. Regarding the Windows, although the Windows does have the different types of the software programs, utilities and games for free, the majority of the programs will cost anywhere between $20 to $200 plus dollars per copy. So which means that all the software, most of these softwares which is used for the Windows operating system are much expensive than the Linux operating system, in which in the Linux operating system we have more free kind of the software packages are available. So that's regarding the software cost. The another important aspect regarding the differences between the Linux and the Windows operating system is that the hardware. So regarding the hardware which is used for this Linux operating system, the many Linux companies, they also the hardware manufacturers have made the great advancements in hardware support for the Linux, and today Linux will support most hardware devices. However, many companies still do not offer the drivers for support for their hardware in the Linux. And regarding the Windows operating system, because of the amount of the Microsoft Windows users and the broader driver support, Windows has a much large support for the hardware devices, and a good majority of hardware manufacturers will support their products in Microsoft Windows. So regarding the hardware, Microsoft Windows support almost all these kinds of hardware components than the Linux operating system, which means because of this wide popularity of this Microsoft Windows, most of these manufacturers of these hardwares, they will give the support for this Windows operating system. So that's regarding the hardware. And then we have the security. So regarding the Linux security, the Linux and has always been a very secure operating system. Although it is still can be attacked when compared to Windows, it is much more secure than the Windows operating system. Then although the Microsoft has made the great improvements security over the security purpose of these operating systems in the regarding the Windows, but most of their operating systems are vulnerable to the viruses and also other kind of these harmful attacks. So basically regarding security, the Linux has a kind of a slighter edge over the Microsoft Windows, in which basically all this kind of softwares and the kernel of this Linux is much safer than the Windows operating system. Then the second last topic is regarding the open source. So regarding the Linux operating system, many of the Linux variants and many Linux programs are open source and enable the users to customize or modify the code however they wish to. So which means that we can modify all these kinds of distribution packages according to our needs. So that's regarding the Linux operating system. Then regarding the Windows operating system, the Microsoft Windows is not open source and the majority of the Windows programs are not open source. So most of these softwares which is comes under with the Windows operating systems are not a kind of this open source softwares. Then the last one is regarding support. So regarding the Linux operating system, we have a kind of a difficulty in order to face these kinds of support for the Linux variants. So regarding the support for the Linux, all these kinds of support, we get all these kinds of support with the help of these online platforms. Then regarding the Windows, Microsoft Windows includes its own help section and has vast amount of this available online documentation and help, as well as the books to on each kind of these versions of this Windows. So basically because of this wide popularity of this Windows operating system, it also have this kinds of wide support for the all the kinds of these softwares. So these are the different kinds of topics that we should focus on while we comparing the Linux and the Windows operating system. So the first one is regarding the pricing, second one was regarding the ease of use, then the reliability, then also the software cost, then the hardware security, and second last one was regarding the open source, and finally we have the support for the operating systems. So these are the topics that we should focus on while we comparing the Linux and the Windows operating system. So both these softwares or all these kind of distribution packages are very popular in its kind of this content, but we have the Windows operating system which is more popular than the Linux operating system, which because of this wide popularity also we have kind of more advantages over the Linux operating system because of this wide acceptance of this Windows operating systems. So that's regarding the Linux and Windows, both these kind of these operating systems. Then we have the fourth topic of this module, which is the free software. So regarding the free software, it is the kind of software that can be used, studied and modified without the restrictions, and which can be copied and redistributed in modified or unmodified form, either without restriction or with minimal restrictions, only to ensure that the further recipients can also do these things, and that manufacturers of the consumer facing hardware allow the user the modification to their hardware. So basically the free software is generally available without any charge but can have a kind of fee. So this means that the free software is a kind of software that can be used, studied and also modified without any kind of these restrictions. So that's the definition for the free software. So the free software, which means the freedom to develop in order to redistribute all these kinds of softwares. So the free software movement was conceived in 1983 by Richard Stallman to satisfy the need for and to give the benefit of the free software freedom to computer users. Stallman founded the Free Software Foundation in 1985 to provide the organization structure to advance his free software ideas. So it is that in 1983, Richard Stallman, who developed these kinds of free software movement, and the intention of developing the free software movement is that to give the benefit of the software freedom to the computer users. So that's regarding the slight history behind the free software movement. Then from 1998 onwards, the alternative terms for the free software came into use, which includes the free and open source software, which is the FOSS, then the free, libre and also the open source software, which is the FLOSS, and also the software libre. So all these kinds of softwares are the antonyms for the free software itself. So the antonym for the free software is the proprietary software or the non-free software. Free software, which may or may not be distributed free of charge, is distinct from the freeware, which by definition does not require a payment for the use. Since the free software may be freely distributed, it is generally available at little or no cost. Free software in business models are usually based on the adding value such as this application, support, training, customization, integration or certification. So like that we can develop all these kinds of free software according to our need. So here an example is given for the business purpose. So at the same time, some business models which works with the proprietary software are not compatible with the free software, such as those that depend on the user paying for the license in order to lawfully use the software product. So we have different types of these free softwares that are available. Before that, we have to focus on the topic, the definition of the free software. So the first formal definition for the free software was published by FSF, which means the Free Software Foundation, in February 1986, and the free software definition written by the Richard Stallman and published by the FSF defines the free software as a matter of liberty, not price. And this definition, which means a matter of liberty, not price, which was written by Richard Stallman, and it is still maintained today, and states that the software is free software if people who receive a copy of the software have the following four different types of these freedoms. So we have 4 different types of freedoms are available, which is from freedom 0 to freedom 3. So the first one is regarding the freedom 0, which means the freedom to run the program for any purpose. So we can run all these kinds of free software for any kind of this purpose, for example for the office use, for the educational use, etc. Second one is regarding the freedom 1. So the freedom to study how the program works, and also we can remodify all these kinds of softwares. So that's regarding the freedom 1, in order to study all these kinds of softwares. The third one is the freedom 2, in which the freedom to redistribute the copies, so you can help your neighbor. So we can redistribute all these kinds of software to anyone. And the last one is the freedom 3, which is the fourth one, in which the freedom to improve the program and release your improvements. So we can improve all these kinds, we can develop all these kinds of softwares, and also we can release these kinds of updates for the softwares. So these are the different types of these freedoms, which comes under the definition of the free software. So the definition is very important, in which it is a matter of liberty, not for the price. And the freedom 1, 2, 3 require a source code to be available, because studying and also modifying software without its source code is highly impractical. So these are the important topics that we should focus on in the free software. So the first one is the definition for the free software, which is very important. The second one is regarding the introduction for the free software. It was a kind of software movement which is conceived in 1983 by Richard Stallman, and also the different types of this freedom, which includes the 4 types of freedom from freedom 0 to freedom 3. And also in this class we discussed about the Linux and Windows operating system, a comparison between these two operating systems, and also various types of this Linux distributions, and also the how to install the Linux operating system with the help of this live CD feature. So with that we just wind up today's class. So in this class we discuss these kinds of topics. So we have some more topic which comes under this module, which includes the software license, then the different types of these licenses, also the software tools, and also the last one is regarding the security for the computer. So these topics we will be discussing in the next class. So that's for today. Thank you. Happy learning.